What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Movie Dash podcast brought to you by Laoya.net, a podcast where we review movies, TV series, have interviews, and round up the week with iron hot topics in the world of cinema. I'm Dashran and joining me today to review Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker is Samuel Lim.
It's an instinct. A feeling. The Force brought us together. We're not alone. Good people will fight if we lead them.
People keep telling me they know me. No one does.
But I do.
This is perhaps the most frustrating, to your bones, frustrating Star Wars film that we've gotten, since the prequels.
No, but you learn to accept that the prequels were what it is.
Yes.
I feel like an Asian parent because, the original was the eldest, responsible one. He had a bit of quirks, but he's overall just an A student. Then you get prequels. He's just a C student. And then when he got to a B+, you were like, okay lah.
Yes.
You did fine. But this one just went from A to A- or A+, depending on who. It's still a good film. It just dropped right down to a D.
Here's what I didn't like about the film. Right? From the get-go, from the opening crawl, you already sense that something is off.
Yeah.
Right? Because one of the first few words of the opening crawl is that Palpatine is back and he's up to no good.
Yeah.
And
And
then-
that's not a spoiler because it was in the trailer.
Yeah, he was in the trailer, but nothing about Palpatine's return in the film has intrigue, has mystery, has thrills, right? He's just there. And then the writing just gets weirder because from the start, we see Kylo Ren and he goes he goes and visits Palpatine,
Yeah.
right? He goes and visits Palpatine. He gets a bunch of exposition dump.
Info dump.
Dump that is so boring, that is so bland. And then after that, we straight away, then like a couple of scenes later, we see the protagonists who discover that Palpatine is back. Like all the protagonists, basically they're discussing this at Resistance base camp, right?
Yeah.
And they all react to it rather nonchalantly.
Yeah, you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Sky's blue, Palpatine's back.
Exactly. And the weirdest thing is, Leia, she was like, yeah, I know. I knew she was it was Palpatine all along. And I'm like, what? Yeah. And Palpatine all along is a big key here because basically one of the information that we get, again, this is not a spoiler because this is literally one of the first few sentences of the film, is that, yeah, I've been behind everything all along. I've been behind Snoke. I've been behind every single thing that you've seen. And it doesn't make sense. This goes against everything that is set up in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Not just Last Jedi, mind you, Force Awakens also.
Yeah, here's the thing. I'm not against Palpatine returning to screen. I'm not a fan of it, but again, if you could find a way to bring him back in an organic, exciting manner, then sure, why not? But zero setup. Go watch Last Jedi, go watch Force Awakens. You will find absolutely zero clues to his return. Nothing. You are just given exposition in the crawl and you have to piece together from trailers, from random bits and throwaway lines in the film. And you're like, this is what we get?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And but the inclusion of Palpatine is the core of whatever that's wrong with the film. Not just from an in-story perspective, but the very construction of the film itself and what it is. Because you see, Force Awakens was great.
Yeah.
Force Awakens is a great film. It rekindled the magic of Star Wars. It did what it needed to do, but it was a rehash of A New Hope.
Yeah, it was.
It's a good rehash, new characters, all that, but it's a rehash. And the the universe, this galaxy felt very small, right? What Rian Johnson did, whether you like the movie or not, is that he broke the shackles that have been basically at the ankles of Star Wars for the longest time. He went against the formula, and he did he embodied the essence of Star Wars without following the formula of Star Wars, right? And by killing off Snoke, by pushing Kylo Ren in the way that he did, by making Rey's parents nobodies and all that, what he did was he opened a path for the next director to come in and take this movie in whatever direction that the director wanted to.
He essentially gave the whole universe a clean slate,
Yes.
a clean canvas. Yeah.
What JJ Abrams does is he gets on his knees, he picks up the broken shackles, fixes it back, and he does it in the film too, because you see Kylo Ren fixing his helmet again, takes those shackles, puts it around his ankles, and just limps through the film. This is a film
He
that
runs
is
and falls just so many times.
This is a film that is so obsessed with the past to such an annoying, unfathomable degree, right? Like, we will get into like all the detailed scenes, but this is a film where the writing is weak. The first act especially feels like a bunch of scenes just put together.
Every 15 minutes, there's a callback that makes no sense.
No sense. What they did with Rey's character, I'm not going to spoil it, but what they did with Rey's character, it isn't just what they did that bothers me. It's the execution, because it's so poorly written and it's so poorly executed, in the sense that when it happens, you're like,
Cool.
yeah, and that's
Whatever.
that reaction is exactly what a lot of these movies, like, conflicts are just resolved with exposition. Like, if characters are so-called dead, then they just come back. You know, it's just things like that don't. There's no rhythm. The film has no rhythm. It has no flow to it, and character. What? You see? Okay, you want to bring Palpatine back? Sure. Bring him back if you want to, but bring him back in a manner that is poetic. Bring him back in a manner that is thrilling, that is mysterious, that has intrigue, that resonates emotionally.
Yeah.
Not bring him as a figure that is just there, generic, like a one-dimensional robot in a Michael Bay Transformers movie.
Exactly, because if I could just compare this to one thing, Lord of the Rings is a great example of how to set up for a great big villain. Because, right, in the first film, you get the gravity and you understand the context of who this guy is, who this pervading evil of what Sauron is. But he's never the main villain. He works through his agents, which is arguably what you see in Force Awakens. Then Snoke was sort of this trilogy Sauron. Then we saw in Last Jedi, right? If you could say Saruman was like a new villain took over, but I like that Last Jedi changed that basically the Sauron of the franchise was killed off, and I thought, okay, I'm not exactly happy with Last Jedi, but I'm happy to see Kylo Ren take the reins. What would happen if you got a B plot villain and you gave him just so much debt and you excelled him to like prominence?
Exactly. You see, here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
We talk about Kylo Ren. Kylo Ren, to me, is a gift to Star Wars.
Yeah.
He was in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. He grew to be, to me, the most intriguing character in all of Star Wars, and I don't say that lightly. We have plenty of iconic characters in Star Wars throughout the years, but Kylo Ren topped my list.
Yeah.
As someone who loves Kylo Ren, or loves to hate Kylo Ren, this movie dilutes him and makes him one-dimensional. Yes, they do touch on the conflict within him and all that. But again, it boils down to how haphazardly it's written, how shabby the script is, where like in Last Jedi and Force Awakens, you felt his pain. Like, they basically, especially in Last Jedi, Rian Johnson took Kylo Ren, put him on a table and dissected the character so that like you really got a glimpse into his inner thoughts.
Yeah, and those scenes where they were both like doing this sort of mental battle between the
Yes.
back and forth between Rey and Kylo, it felt like, okay, I see conflict, I see tension, I see just mounting. And the best part is the ambiguity. Is this sort of a philosophical, like altruistic battle to redeem his soul? Or is this maybe an element of romantic sexual tension? And I love the fact that it builds and up to the point where it just explodes in the throne room. It builds haphazardly, and then it kind of just falls apart.
Yes,
Yeesh.
nothing. There is not a single moment in this film where you can see that's a pure moment of character. Like the camera just lingers on a character and you get to be with the character and feel what the character is going through. None of that. There's no character depth in the film at all. It just falls flat. The writing, oh my god, we are talking about the writing over and over and over again. But that it all boils down to this. This is the guy who wrote Batman v Superman, Chris Terrio, and he is once again collaborating with. In this film, JJ also penned the script alongside Chris Terrio, and my god, does this feel like Batman v Superman. So much stuff is going on. It feels like a 4-hour film truncated into a 2-hour something film, and like it just jumps from scene to scene to scene to scene. Where's the thematic resonance of every decision they make? None of it makes sense.
To quote Martin Scorsese, this film is a roller coaster ride. I mean, not the quote lah, but to appropriate.
Yes.
Basically, this whole film is just one big cinematic roller coaster ride. And look, to be fair, I can say we had fun.
Yes, that's
Some
the thing,
scenes,
right? You see,
right?
because this is not complete garbage.
No, it's not.
You see that
That's not.
what I'll say that the JJ Abrams has such a flair for the visuals. And you have your usual John Williams score. The editing is mostly good, and like all these kind of things. This is a beautiful film, aesthetically speaking. There's some stunning imagery. Even the opening scene where you see like there's this red hue and this giant planet, and you see TIE fighters going.
Yeah, the opening scene is actually pretty cool. It
Yes.
set up my expectations pretty high.
Yes, it was everything is shot so well and all that, but. That when all of it is shot so well, you can't help but go along for the ride, right? Because the action scenes, there's this thing they do. Poe basically uses the Falcon and do something called light speed skipping.
Yeah,
oh
and
my
it's pretty
God.
cool. Like you were like, oh, I didn't know you could do that, but that's actually, you see, the film works well when it builds on what was set by the last team.
When it focuses on the sequel trilogy, the current crop of characters.
Yeah,
because
innovation. Yeah.
Yes, all those kinds of things is really, really good. You got the lightsaber battle between Kylo Ren and Rey is really, really good. I love that this is, I think, the first lightsaber battle that it doesn't even have an epic John Williams score. What JJ Abrams does is he removes all. He doesn't include a sort of musical track or an epic track. What he does is he just keeps it silent, and all you hear is the clash of the lightsaber. You hear
and
the
the roar of
heaving,
the
the
sea.
sea,
Oh,
and all
so
that.
good.
And it's such and this creative choice makes it a very tension-filled like action scene.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
There are moments where you have these basically horse riding on a Star Destroyer, and all these things are honestly really, really cool.
Yeah, they are.
And
They look good too.
they look really good, and what they do is John Williams' score is fantastic as always. Although most of the great stuff in this movie comes from the old movies,
but he does what he does.
yeah,
and
he
it's
does what
fine.
he's yeah. So what all of this does is it provides like this huge distraction from the garbage writing.
Yes, this film is so much flash, begging for substance.
Yes. There are certain story details that work, but in screenplay, in how it's told, everything falls flat. And this movie, while I didn't hate it, this is frustrating, and especially coming from me, someone who loved almost every single thing the Disney era of Star Wars has given. I love Force Awakens. Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. Rogue One, fantastic. Solo, enjoyable. It is what it is. This was frustrating from start to finish.
Listen, we're not angry. We're just
Yeah.
disappointed. We really did expect more out of this movie, you know? And look, I'll say this. Disney, you need to commit to a vision. Look, even if you get shit for it, stick to it, because the least people can say is you went out with a bang and you stuck to your guns and you held on to your integrity. This film, I don't know. I guess Rise of Skywalker just feels so hollow. Like, it was
Yeah.
just based on cynical decisions.
Cynical decisions, and just basically this is a film, right, which is so obsessed with the past to the point where it feels less like a film, it feels less like a piece of a piece of art than basically the writers going on Reddit, looking at a bunch of fan theories or fanfics and just shooting
that
all
one.
of that.
Yeah.
Basically, that's what we see in the film. Every 5 minutes, call back, things that don't make sense, things that contradict the Last Jedi, things that contradict JJ Abrams' own Force Awakens. Doesn't matter. Call back. Here's a callback. There are things they do with Leia in this film that
Make no damn sense.
makes no damn sense whatsoever, and it's just shoehorned in. It doesn't matter if there's no flow, there's no rhythm, there's no tempo, there's no beat, there's no gradual escalation of conflict. None of it matters, because here's just some scenes, call back.
Yeah, I describe this trilogy as jazz, you know? You got some very interesting, like, clean notes in the first film. Then the second one was a little bit more jagged, but it had a little bit more excitement to it. And then finally, I don't know, the guy just farted in his saxophone and called it a day.